Councillor McGuire? Sorry, Chair McGuire, if we could just pause for a second. The audio is not picking up your audio. So if you could just hold for 1 second, and if not, we'll have to switch the chair. Just give me 1 moment. Yep, correct. You're loud and clear in the room, but the volume's not picking up at the live stream. Can I get one of you to speak into the microphone?
Hello. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Gary, maybe you could move that microphone closer to the computer.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to test that one out?
How about this one?
Okay, yep, it's working fine in here.
I thought it was. Yeah.
I thought it was
Put it beside the monitor.
It's not long enough.
Not long enough.
I don't think.
Is it long enough to go to that desk?
Is it?
Yeah, it's originally supposed to be on the podium, so that would be closer to the laptop.
Oh, I can move it.
Not saying it'll work, but
Thanks,
it's good
Stephen.
to try.
I'm gonna move this.
I don't think it'll reach.
Well, it can reach right here.
Sorry, Chris, I know you don't want to see me.
Part of the tech team.
We're in trouble.
Chatter's coming from. I know he's at an airport. Oh, is that where? Oh, good, a screaming baby.
Get into the computer when we're not using it.
That's cute.
Right. Chair McGuire, can you hear me? I don't think so. I'm just going to check it. If not, we'll switch and have Councillor Brennan do the meeting.
I thought it was.
I'm just going to test to see if it's picking you up. We'll check it. If not, we'll switch and have
Yeah, as long as you.
Microphone isn't bigger.
just test to see if it's picking you up. If not, we'll switch and have Not sure, but it's still not picking you up. So we'll switch chairs to Chair Brennan. But it's not picking the audio up for some reason.
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you here. And I'll just have Chair Brennan, if you could repeat Councillor McGuire's comments so people could hear.
Yes, I can do that. Yeah. Short. For sure. You could also text them, I guess. I don't know.
All right, so Chair Brennan, if you wouldn't mind, could you, I'll give you my agenda if we could start.
I got one.
Oh, you've got one? If you don't mind, could we start from the top just because we didn't get the land acknowledgement?
Okay.
That's too bad. It's good.
Okay, so we're a little late. It's Monday, June 26th. I'm Councillor Jay Brennan. I'll be chairing the meeting. We had some technical difficulties with our remote feed for Councillor McGuire, so I'm going to take over. And I'll begin again with our land acknowledgement. On June 26, 2023, we acknowledged that the sacred land on which Smith Falls is now located has been the site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contributions in making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smith Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other drawing on strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship and being mindful of generations to come. So we'll recall the meeting to order, and we're about 5:07 now. And I'll entertain a motion that June 26, 2023 Committee of Whole meeting agenda be approved as circulated. Moved by Councillor Robinson, second by Councillor Quinn. All in favor? Any disclosure of pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest and general nature thereof. I am going to mention something on item 9.3 in our priority items. In the previous term of council, I had declared a pecuniary interest because I live close to that development. Since that time, I've gotten legal advice that I'm not close enough, so I'm not in a conflict on that matter, and I declared so at planning committee as well, so I'll be participating in that. So item 5, the recommended motion, minutes of the June 12th, 2023 Committee of Whole meeting be approved as circulated. Moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor McKenna. All in favor? Good. We have no delegations. I believe we have one director's report this evening with Director McMahon.
Thank you, Chairperson Brennan. So I have a couple of reports this evening. The first one is an update on the progress of Catherine Street. So as we're all aware, Catherine Street is being reconstructed this summer from Broadview Avenue down to Oak Street, inclusive of some work that we're doing on Oak Street as well, from Brockville to Jasper Avenue. So the contract was awarded to Campbell's Trucking, as we know. They mobilized a couple, 3 weeks or so ago, and so they've been working pretty hard since then. Most of the mobilization has taken place, equipment on site. They had their line drillers on site to drill rock on Oak Street, so that took the better part of the last 3 weeks or so. The rock is very, very shallow on Oak Street, and we needed to, contractor felt it prudent to line drill prior trying to mechanically break the rock, which I think is a smart move. So I'm not saying that delayed anything, but certainly was the right thing to do. Temporary water is all laid out over land, hooked up to exterior hose bits on properties. Has not been commissioned yet. That's coming up here this week in the next couple of days. Then everybody will be switched over to temporary water backfeed, and then the contractor can start to work on water main within the road allowance to replace it. So right now, we got no reason to think right now that we won't be done by this November. That's still early on in the game. The school, I understand the school will be out tomorrow, and then there's still going to be staff there for the better part of the balance of this week into next week. They're having their graduation on the 6th of July. Why that's important is the contractor needs to be aware of those activities so that they can stage their work accordingly to make sure that they have access for pedestrians and vehicles to get into the parking lot. So the contractor is aware. And then of course school commences in, I think September 7th this year. Kids are back to school after Labor Day. So they're switching their schedule around a little bit. Originally they were gonna work on Oak Street and Broadview Avenue, Oak Street and Catherine Street from Davidson up to Broadview, and they were gonna leave the block between Davidson and Oak Street. Now they switched around, understanding that the school, they're going to be out for the summer back in September. So you're going to start working on underground servicing on that block in front of the school first, and then they're going to skip over to the last block up to Broadview Avenue. So that's my update on there. Quite happy with the progress so far. We've got our new inspector out there, and she's doing a great job. That's Samantha Turner. And things seem to be going well to date. My second update is with respect to Town Square. So I'm sure everybody's seen the great and wonderful work that Kavanaugh did with the hardscaping and landscaping, and then the work that Samirs have done with the beautiful band shell that we're going to have outside. It's largely completed at this point. The landscaping and hardscaping is done. So that worked out well because our grant is. We did get an extension on our CCRF funding until the end of June, which covers much of the hardscaping and landscaping. So that's a good news story. And the bandstand, although it's mostly completed, there are still some elements that are on order for some of the upper spandrel pieces. Underneath the rafters, there's some decorative gingerbreading, we'll call it, up along the top that we're still waiting for. So hopefully that those items get here within the coming weeks. They figure anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks for delivery for that, and then that'll finish off the bandstand. So that's my update on that. Thank you, Chair Brennan.
Thank you, Director. Any questions for Director Fung? Seeing none, I will say that, I don't have a question. I just want to say that I was contacted a week and a half ago by Melanie Folks, who is Tom's daughter, and they've been driving through town, and they're absolutely thrilled,
Right.
and they can't wait to come for the grand opening whenever that happens.
Yeah, if I could,
Yep.
through the chair. So I failed to mention that right now we're in the planning stages of looking at Friday, July 28th for the grand opening ribbon cutting. So lots of details to work out. Been working with Julia Crowder and Esther in our communications area in corporate services and the mayor just on some of the details for the grand opening. So that's all coming together. So more to come on that as we get closer to the date.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. So the new item on our agenda, which there's nothing on, is Committee of the Whole consent report. So I'm looking forward to the day when that comes on to one of the agendas, but there's nothing on there today. So we have 3 priority issues. The first one is the draft signed bylaw report with Planning Clerk Remming. Mary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, everyone. So the latest draft of the signed bylaw was presented to Council at their Committee of Whole meeting on May 23rd, 2023. At that discussion, Council directed for the removal of the proposed limitation on the number of fascia, awning, and canopy signs in the downtown core, that the bylaw allow projecting signs that exceed a 1 meter projection subject to engineered plans in accordance with the requirements of the Ontario Building Code, and for further consultation with the Chamber of Commerce. The directed modifications are included in the draft bylaw that have been appended to my report. However, Council's modifications have not been flagged as red line revisions. Report 2023-080 is intended to update Council on additional changes to the sign bylaw further to those directed and following consultation with the Chamber of Commerce. Upon circulation to the Chamber, planning staff received written feedback from Rob Fowley, a member of the Board of Directors of the Chamber of Commerce and co-owner of Howling Designs, a local sign company. Feedback received from Mr. Fowley emphasized concern with the limitation of the use of synthetic material for signs in the downtown core, the drafted prohibition on luminous signs, also referred to as backlit signs, and the lack of clarity of when a sign is expected to move into compliance with the new sign bylaw. Staff are presenting a red line version of the sign bylaw demonstrating where changes have been made to incorporate flexibility for the review of sign proposals not meeting the requirements of the bylaw. Signs made of synthetic material and luminous signs may be appropriate within the downtown core, where the use of material and method of illumination can be rationalized for the neighborhood context and architectural age and style of the building it is proposed for. The flexibility written into the bylaw and demonstrated by the red line changes will allow proposals to be reviewed in more detail on a case-by-case basis where proposals do not comply with the bylaw. To allow for flexibility, staff are recommending that the fee applied to exception requests be removed for an exception which meets the definition of minor deviation in accordance with Section 14. This includes exception requests from Section 9, which pertains to the downtown core and contains the limitation on synthetic materials and prohibition on luminous signs. Minor deviations also include exceptions for temporary signs, some residential signs, most neighborhood commercial signage, and signs which do not encroach on town-owned lands. A request for an exception from Section 9 pertaining to the downtown core must be accompanied by a rationale demonstrating that the proposal is appropriate for the age and style of the building in which it is proposed for. A satisfactory rationale rationalizing the use of synthetic material or a luminous sign would be carefully considered by staff within the context of the council-adopted guiding policy, such as the Downtown Core Design Guidelines. If staff are satisfied with the rationale and that the intents of guiding policies are met, an exception may be authorized at no cost to the applicant. Staff are proposing that signs in the downtown core consist of a minimum 50% non-synthetic materials. Signs and their components consisting of 50% or more synthetic material must adhere to the process for authorizing an exception from the bylaw. Where a luminous sign is proposed in the downtown core, the same exception of process would apply. Finally, existing signs which do not conform to the requirements of the bylaw are permitted to exist until the sign is removed or altered. Any replacement, modification, or repair of the sign would be held to the requirements of the new bylaw. Additional clarity has been added to section 16 of the bylaw to address this concern raised. I'm available to answer any more questions.
Thanks, Mary. And I know I can see over on my screen, there's a hand up on the screen there. So if you can hear me, Councillor McGuire, go right ahead. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, thanks. I'll try to summarize. So basically, I think what Councillor McGuire said, that we had some great input from a member of the Chamber of Commerce in the sign business, Rob Foley, and had some great examples of how synthetic signs can really work. And Councillor McGuire had referenced that, you know, they could fit in with the downtown, and perhaps the 50% natural materials may be a little constrictive. And I think his request is that we take another look at that on that particular red line that was mentioned in the bylaw. So is that basically what we said, Chris? Okay. Any other comments on anything else? That's the one point then, because there was another point in the report about repairing signs, I think, and that sort of thing. There's any comment on that from you, Chris? Okay. Okay, so you're fine with that particular part of the bylaw, with the repair signs. If there's a sign that needs to be repaired post bylaw, then it's a good time to do that and do it within the bylaw, and perhaps the CIP can help out with that. Right? Okay. Okay, so I don't have to repeat anybody else. Any other? Councillor Miller?
So I support Mr. Foley's comments to get more information and his offer of assistance through the sign association. So thank you very much for that. I have some concerns about if you have to make a repair, then you have to replace the whole sign. And from a practical point of view, I think that the CIP suggestion is good, but I'd like to see that in place before we implement this rule, because if you go to fix one little thing on a sign, suddenly you're throwing out something that may be perfectly good and putting the whole expense in of replacing the sign. So I don't support that piece. Thank
Okay.
you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments? Oh, Don and then Councillor Quinn and then Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I am of the opinion that we need to defer this for a bit and work with Rob Foley to get the proper information that we need to make sure that the signs are what we want downtown, but I cannot see where we can eliminate the synthetic product, because that's just what signs are made of nowadays, and to restrict that is just going to put another burden on businesses, and businesses have a hard enough time getting things organized and opened and keeping things looking good. So let's just defer it for a little bit and have more discussion on this, and then we can have a good sign bylaw that does exactly what we want it to do.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Robinson?
Thank you. I too am of the same opinion. I agree we should defer it for a little bit. Like, my biggest problem with that particular item 9.3, I don't understand what difference it makes what the sign is made from. As long as it's durable, the finished product looks good, and meets the appearance criteria of the sign bylaw. Two of the newest signs downtown, the Loveday Spa and Willow, are synthetic and non-conforming according to this bylaw. But they are, in my opinion, the best looking signs on Beckwith Street. And they are very durable from what I understand, and they complement the architectural aspects of the buildings. They don't take anything away from them. So, because of that, I just think there needs to be a little more work done. And I don't like disagreeing with staff, but to me, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then the other one is item 16, the non-conforming sign. And I agree with Councillor Miller. We need to know, for example, if there's nothing wrong with the sign, but the lighting goes inside. If they want to change it to LED, then chances are that is a repair. But there's nothing wrong with the sign. So, you're getting rid of something in an extra cost for no real reason other than, you want to change the lighting, because the sign itself is still perfectly fine. So anyway, those are my comments.
Thank you, and go ahead, Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could ask Mary, could you just elaborate a little bit on number 16? So if the sign needed a paint job, and I did.
Yes, so the intent isn't to paint jobs. So as you've seen in the downtown core, signs will become dilapidated and require maintenance over a period of time. There is also a maintenance section to the bylaw. Mm-hmm. So the term repair is meant to speak directly to that, where it's in a state of disrepair and requires repair in order to repair the faulty sign versus switching to LED lights. But yes, maybe that intent isn't clear, but yes.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, I'm fine with that piece if that's the intent. It's not brushing up your sign or up it, but if you really need to replace it, it's got to be the new standard. So I'm comfortable with that. And I'm okay with my colleague's suggestion on that. Could you come back with something specifically around what the sign is made of? It sounds like we can have a win-win here. The Sign Manufacturers Association is suggesting synthetic materials will give us that look and feel. And if that is indeed the case, I would support stuff. Just taking one look at that one section and tidying that up. But otherwise, I'm 100% behind the rest of the.
Yeah, go ahead, Mary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a quick question. I maybe have two questions. So the first one is, in Rob Bowley's comments, he seems to be getting into the realm of regulating design of the signs. So at present time, the restriction on the synthetic materials is based on the council adopted downtown core design guidelines from 2014, which suggests we do not want to see predominantly synthetic signs in the downtown core. I will advise that staff are currently working on updating those guidelines, and council should see them later this year, beginning of 2024. So that's good news. But on the side notes here, are we looking to regulate design in terms of pinned lettering or carved lettering in order to, perfect. I just want to clarify that. I appreciate that.
Peter?
It just, for me, it was just what the material is made from. Not, I don't want to get into design. And it's good that staff are following a previous council's direction.
Yes.
That's going to be updated.
And I think Councillor McGuire has his hand up again. You? Oh, you're good. You're good. Okay. Councillor McGuire's mentioned that his discussions with Mr. Foley centered around the Canadian Sign Association, and that there is a way to get a standard that is acceptable. So, and that it would be nice to have a look and see how other municipalities do it, which is what I was going to say in a minute. But Councillor Quinn?
Just don't want staff thinking that we're thinking you haven't been working hard, because you have. We do really appreciate that. There's just a few things that we just
Yeah. And I'll just pipe in here, and I think Councillor Robbins got something else. But let's remember, this bylaw was passed in 1994. So, and it is a big piece, and I think that if it's going to take a bit longer, that's okay. But I do agree with my council colleagues' comments, and I appreciate Mr. Foley's input as well. He supplied pictures and everything for us, and it just made sense. So, and as I've heard tonight as well, I'm not interested in getting into how the script is written or what font they're using or anything like that. It's just the material and the looks of it. So I'm fine with putting this back to you. I'm sorry, but and I know it's been a lot of work, and we've been talking about this for some time now. But it is an old piece of bylaw that we have that we're dealing with, and it's we're trying to get our downtown back, and it's coming. So, Councillor Robinson.
Oh, thanks. Just further to that, the other part of my intention was to, since it's a real update to the old bylaw for the signs, I would like to see it a more streamlined process, and thus maybe making less work for you guys having to keep going back and changing things like that. That was the other part of my intent in that, and I forgot to say it.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, go ahead, Mary.
Sorry, just to respond to that real quick. So I guess the beauty of this new bylaws does help streamline a few things. Things like portable signs, so menu displays in the downtown core, no longer needing a sign permit for that, reducing the amount of paperwork. Exception requests, we do have some exceptions that can be delegated to staff, where right now all exceptions go through council. So there has been the intent to streamline this and reduce some of the workload on the staff front.
Good. Yeah, good. So I think we have a consensus here, and it's not back to the drawing board, but it's just some little tweaks and stuff, and we want to get it right after 30 years. So back to you, Marion. Thank you for that, and we'll look forward to continue to work on this. Okay. 9.2, award of contract 23 PW 007 milling of asphalt grading, hot mix paving, and municipal concrete and rehabilitation report. With Director McMunn, it means we're paving some streets.
Yes, thank you, Chair Brennan. Yeah, that's a mouthful for sure. So, yes, like you articulated, it is paving of streets. The milling, paving of streets. In some cases, it's the full depth removal of asphalt. For instance, on Alfred Street and Chambers Street from Running Avenue to Rideau Avenue North, and then Rideau Avenue North from Chambers Street to Dufferin Street. So those are a couple sections that we're doing full depth removal just because of the deterioration of the asphalt and trying to address some grade issues and some ponding of water and trying to get the road to drain a little better. The other sections of area through town are, just as it suggests, mill off 50 mils of asphalt, put down 40 to 50 mils, try to reprofile the road a little bit to get better drainage. There's some curbing and sidewalk repairs. Obviously, I mean, we don't want to pave the street and leave derelict adjacent curbs, so we take sections where we need to and we replace that with new curb. There are some areas in town where we have sidewalk right adjacent to the street as well, and if we have issues with driveway depressions, we want to correct those at this time as well. So I think staff did a fairly decent job in in budgeting for this for this work in 2023 budget deliberations. For instance, we had budgeted. Let me see. We budgeted $869,576. The total low bid price from Kavanaugh. We did have 3 bidders on this project: Tomlinson, GOA Paving, and Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh were low bid at $869,595.45. So almost right off the same amount as we budgeted, but their price is irrespective of the net HST. Okay, so pretty close. I think our staff did a pretty good job on budgeting, I would say. But it does leave us with a deficit of approximately $15,000 to complete the work. So I consulted with our treasurer and our director of corporate services, Myra, and suggested that the balance of $15,000 come from capital reserve. So she was comfortable with that. I would note that all of these streets, we did our street scan back 2 years ago that didn't identify what our pavement condition index is in town. It's not great. We're sitting at around 50%. We'd like to get that up to, get our service, our level of service on our roads up to 65, 70 would be great, but that's going to take a tremendous amount of funding from the town. I don't know that we would ever get there, but we'll do our best to try to do what we can with what we have. So that all said, the recommendation is that council pass a bylaw to award the contract for 23-PW-007 for asphalt paving. I'll shorten it up to Thomas Kavanaugh Construction, and further that authorize the mayor and clerk to formalize an agreement with the contractor. So with that said, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director. Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm very supportive of awarding this tender. I think staff did an excellent job putting it together. And I was glad you brought up the pavement condition index, because that was my question. Some of the highlighted in the staff report talk about the distance or the length of street, and some don't. So that was really my question. I like targets, and you've suggested 60 to 65% would be a good place to be. And you're right, as we fix these ones, some older streets fall further behind. But do you have a sense of is this kind of a project, is it enough to move that index up 2 points or 3 points? So I'm interested when we get a big contract like this, if staff could just let us know that, or how we're doing on measuring that, and in the future, that would be helpful to me.
Yeah, I through the chair, I think it would marginally adjust that PCI for globally throughout the town, maybe a point or 2 at the very most. Like I said, our average PCI for the town is sitting at around 50%. So to try to quantify that, to put dollars to it. I don't have to figure off the top of my head, but it would take significant investment to get that up to anywhere between a 60 and 70.
Yeah, and I wasn't suggesting we do that. It just
No, that'll evolve over time. I think the point is if we keep on track with this type of program and others for rehabilitation of our assets, we'll get close to that mark over time. And we're doing, we've done the likes of Beckwith Street reconstruction. Obviously, we got new road surface there. Catherine Street this summer, again, the asphalt is fairly derelict over there as well. That's why we're reconstructing it, not only the road surface, but the condition of sidewalks, condition of the underground linear assets. So there's Catherine Street will, again, maybe pick away at another point in that PCI. That makes sense?
that does it. And if I may, my final, just will the updated asset management plan, will the pavement condition index be baked into that?
It will be, yeah. It gets quite granular in the information you can pull from there. So that's a work in progress. We're still updating that information. Yeah.
Great, thank you. It's a great report.
Thank you. Councillor McGuire, you got your hand up out there. No, you're good. Okay, I'll just repeat that for the audience. That you're asking if this type of milling and paving, it happens yearly, or is it just, usually it seems to be when we do the underground, but this year we're doing it this way. So I guess you're asking if this is ongoing, right? Okay, and you heard.
Yeah, so through the chair, so the town of Smith Falls would not be, it's certainly not atypical in terms of us doing a program like this. In both of the municipalities I worked in previously, both Brockville and Gananoque, they had a program similar to this, identical if you will. That was not created by myself. It was in play long before I started. And I would suggest that most municipalities out there would have programs similar to this. When we look at the costs associated with a full reconstruction of a Catherine Street or a Beckwith Street, we know we're talking about millions of dollars to replace the linear assets underground. So with a program like this, again, we have to be smart in terms of how we're rehabilitating streets, i.e. are we going to go through and mill off 50 mills and put 50 mills down, or is the road so far gone, the roadway structure, sorry, it could include the asphalt and the granulars underneath, is it so far gone that we need to spend some money now to perhaps bring our level of service up on that road to get us through the next 25 years. Okay, because there isn't any given year that we're going to go through, presumably, and do 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 streets full reconstruction. So we'll pick away at that stuff in terms of repairing our sewers and our water when we have issues like main breaks. Sorry, knocking on wood there. And the like, or we also have a relining program as well. We're structurally reline water main and sewers, again, to increase that level of service for pipes that are, that it makes sense to reline them, that they aren't so far gone that we have to look at replacement. So it's a bit of a juggling match, both with asphalt and our linear assets underground, and we try to bring all that information together. That's why the asset management planning is so very important. So we're informed when we make these decisions, and we're making smart decisions. We don't want to go and rehabilitate a road like any of these roads in this report to turn around 2, 3, 4, even 5 years down the road to tear them up and reconstruct. Right? So we're trying to buy ourselves some time, understanding that the linear assets underground, the sewer and water, storm sewers are, that we can, that they still have some life in them, but the roads not great. Sidewalks aren't great. Curbs aren't great. We need to do some spot repairs. So that's what this program speaks to. So it's not a one-shot deal. It's a program that I would suggest we look at doing on an annual basis.
Okay, Councillor Robinson and Chris, do you have your hand up again? You can go next. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going in total support of this because it sounds to me like it's a version of preventative maintenance, albeit a little on the expensive side, but not nearly as much as a major construction. And if it can buy us time, I'm in total favor of that, so that we can spend money on other things that require more attention. So I will be.
Thank you. Councillor Quinn, and then I'll get to you, Councillor McGuire, sorry.
I just have a really goofy question. Is there something better to be using product-wise to make it last long? Might be more expensive, but could get better life out of it. A system where instead of water running down the street, some of the water can run into the pavement. Is there? I don't know. I'm just.
Yeah. So you're talking about like permeable asphalt. Yeah. My preference would be not to look at permeable asphalt. It wouldn't. In our climate, we have winter, freeze thaw. I believe that asphalt would be more prevalent maybe south of the border where it's a little bit warmer. It does present some maintenance issues as well, where we use sand and salt for abrasives and de-icing here in the wintertime too. The pores in the asphalt that would otherwise let the water run through would become filled.
And the only reason I ask that is because everything changes. Things in life change, and so that was the only reason I brought that up.
Yeah. So through the chair, the one thing that we've seen a bit of a shift in the paving market, I'd say in the last maybe half a decade or so, is the switch from a conventional asphalt. It's called HL3, HL4. It's just the asphalt cement that they use in the mix design, along with the aggregate and sand and whatnot to make that mix. We're seeing things transition to what they call the super pave. So it's a difference in the asbestos cement, or the AC that they use in the mix, and it gives you a little better performance in higher and lower temperatures as well. So that's something that we're seeing a lot of. One would think it's a little bit more expensive, when in fact it's kind of hovering around the same price as the conventional paving that we maybe saw half a decade ago.
He says sometimes we don't go a little bit more expensive because it is more expensive, but then if it's more durable, we get more life out of it. At least should be looked at. That's
right.
That's all I was getting.
Yeah, so that's super pave. Super pave is just how it sounds, right? It's better asphalt. Longevity should be better, and many municipalities, whether upper tier or lower tier, are using it currently.
Thank you for that. Okay, sorry, Councillor McGuire. Okay, so you're asking, citing the example of William Street going up the Garden Market that was recently done is not in the best shape now. So it goes to Councillor Quinn's question about the quality of the materials, and is that what we should be looking at? Is that right? Okay, so we want to know what we expect for longevity, if it's going to be the same as that or not, I think.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, the section of William Street, that was just prior to my time starting here in almost 2 years ago now. If I'm not mistaken, that was a microsurface product on William. Councillor Brennan, I see you nodding your head. I believe it was. So that's an application. It's an asphalt application. Goes down just as it suggests, a micro thickness. I guess it's quite thin. It's basically to provide a number of things, but it's trying to fill in some of those discrepancies within the road surface. You know, some of the cracks and whatnot. It won't cause for the roadway to re-crack again, but it'll give you a fairly decent driving surface for a fraction of the price. It isn't the answer for every street, a microsurface. It's a cheaper application, but it you know, it's something that we need to look at in terms of what streets would be applicable for a treatment like that. What streets would be applicable for a mill and pave, and which ones are so far gone that we need to do full removal. So with a microsurface, my experience with it, just monitoring different areas where different municipalities, whether it be the county, have applied that methodology, you sometimes do get some delamination of that microsurfacing from the underlying pavement structure. Generally speaking, that, you know, could happen as early as a couple, 2 or 3, maybe 5 years out. It has its application in terms of timing. So lots of times I believe with microsurfacing, they're just trying to buy themselves maybe that 5-year window to give a decent pavement riding surface before they're looking at a full rehabilitation. So again, it comes down to budget, how much money the municipality has to afford for maybe a larger capital project. They don't have it now, but they're going to plan for it in 5 years, and they need something within that 5-year window just to get them through. So, so that could be the case of William Street. I'd have to look in it a little bit deeper, Councillor McGuire. I could certainly get back to the group once I consult with staff.
Okay. I think there's support here for your recommendation, first of all. I just wanted to ask you and test my knowledge. How many kilometers of streets do we have here? 60? 70?
Well, we have about 60 kilometers of sidewalk.
Sidewalks.
Good question. I should know that, but I'm...
Well, trust me, it's 60.
I don't know. Is
But
it
anyway,
60?
I don't know.
Okay.
I thought that I guess I had that sidewalk. Anyway,
And I
that's a
know that.
lot. Okay, that's all I'm saying. And every year, and we do this every year. I think pretty sure we've done it in the last few years anyway. And you're always is something that makes your phone ring, because they'd be like, "When are you going to do something about this street or that street?" And I'm pleased to see this list. And you know, selfishly, I'm really happy to see Jasper Avenue on there. But yeah, of course, we support this, and I certainly have confidence in you, Public Works, in deciding the best treatment for the streets. So this will come forward at the next council meeting. Yes, and thank you for that. And you're going to stay right there, I think. So we have 9.3 next, a lifting of holding zone, 51 Pearl Street, Broadview Nursing Center. And that's with you, Director.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Brennan. Yeah, so you're probably wondering why I'm up here presenting a planning report. So Senior Planner Grenke is on vacation this week, so he'd asked me to present, and I graciously accepted. So I'll do my best with this report. If there's any questions, I see Mary's left, but I'm fairly briefed on this particular file, so hopefully I don't get stumped. So anyway, so I'm just going to read the recommendation, because I believe that, you know, this isn't the first time council's seeing a report with respect to 51 Pearl Street and the 128-bed long-term care facility that's being proposed over there. So I know I'll read the recommendation in a second, but to my understanding, the holding provision is fairly administrative at this stage of the game. The holding provision is put there in place to, you know, stop up and hold, I guess, any development until such time as that holding provision be lifted. And, you know, we're in a position where we're looking at agreements and site plan agreement and that kind of thing. So So the recommendation says that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls directs staff to give notice of council's intent to lift the holding provision that applies to lands municipally known as 51 Pearl Street in accordance with Section 36 of the Planning Act. And that following the notice, council adopts a bylaw lifting the holding provision to take effect upon final approval of site plan application and conveyance of the unopened portion of Lewis Street. So if so like I said earlier, it's fairly administrative. There's a number of things that need to unfold. This is just council's intent to lift the holding provision. So it's issuing a notice. It's my understanding it's advertised. And if that all comes into line, and then the holding provision can be lifted at a later date once the site plan is approved.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, Councillor Miller?
Thank you. Thanks, Director McMunn. I realize you're not a planner, and neither am I. So I'm not sure if this is an appropriate question or not. But one of the things that struck me a little late was that there's one access point to this development, and with so many residents living there and staff, were there any concerns in the planning process about that singular access point for fire or emergencies?
Yes. So through the chair, when we look at preliminary a proposal, if you will, from the developer, I mean, they've been working through their drawing sets, their site plan, and I understand that it hasn't been approved yet. I get that, but they're well into the planning stages, and it has been circulated for comment by our department heads, one being fire, public works, utilities. So everybody's had a stab at looking at it from a serviceability standpoint, from a land use standpoint, from emergency services standpoint. And I can say confidently that the fire department, I mean, this has been well vetted through staff at this point, and there's no concerns with the single access and egress to the site.
Thank you.
Okay. And I'll just add that it did go through planning committee as well, and that question came up at least once, and it was satisfactorily answered by staff, in my opinion, anyway.
Thank you.
Councilor McKenna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If Mr. Granke was here, I was going to ask him about Appendix D. I wonder if you could give me a 10-minute lecture on conceptual massing.
You're out of order.
I'm very supportive of this report as it presented. Thank you.
Okay. It looks kind of 3D to me.
Yeah. One of the things I'll just add, that's a question, because one of the things when we were meeting virtually, especially with the planning committee, before that, what we would do is the planner would take the drawings down, and then you could go down and actually have a look at it. So it was much better that way. But anyway, everyone's supportive. Thumbs up.
Yes. Oh, there's a hand.
Oh, I have a hand over there. Virtual hand from Councillor McGuire. Sorry about that. This one here.
Yeah, so that's I'm not even going to try to take a stab at that, Councillor McGuire, but it does note that the other lands are owned by the same applicant. Those are the sites you're referring to.
Yeah. Councilor McGuire is asking about the adjacent lands to the site. So for everyone that's listening.
Yeah, so that's probably, I'm not going to speculate. I would suggest you follow up with Senior Planner Grinke on. No
Thanks, Councilor McGuire, but you're okay with lifting the holding? Okay. Thanks, Director. So that will go to, does that need to go through a resolution at the next council meeting?
Yes.
Yes, it does. So that'll come forward. So, and we've got a change of order. If you'll notice on your agenda, the next order is an in-camera session, which we have none, which is a good place to put it. And another new one that we have, there's nothing there, is committee, board, and external organization updates. So I was reading through today, and if there was a board or committee that wanted to do an update, they could come and do one at that time, or their council rep to give it for them. Information listing, correspondence items. Again, that's a regular thing that's just moved to a different part of the agenda, and notice of motions. So a council member could file a motion the week before, or a staff member could do one as well, and that would come up at that time, but we don't have any. So finally, adjournment, which is where it's supposed to be. So entertain a motion that the committee adjourn its proceedings at 5:58 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called committee meeting. Moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor Quinn. All in favor? We're adjourned.
Well done.
Have a good night.
Councillor Brennan, well done.